So, everyone, good morning, good afternoon. Today begins a series of calls to cover some essential principles in finding out how we can really move our business forward. Dave Johnson and I introduced a few months back an approach called the Core Consultant Strategy. I'm going to do a quick share screen in case you haven't seen that yet, as to what that represents. And then I'm going to put into context how we apply that in our business and in our world tour approach. So you can see here that being a core consultant means that we participate in and apply these 6 essential principles or activities. You'll notice that they're divided in the tree in 2 categories. I'm going to start with the right here. We communicate. We work with a mentor, we learn from others and from their experience. We meet and talk with at least one new person every day. We show the Niken plan or business opportunity at least twice per week. These are the fundamental activities. At the same time, we need to be doing certain things to make sure that we are staying focused and engaged. We listen to a Niken audio for a few minutes, perhaps each day. I would suggest that maybe this doesn't need to be each of the video part doesn't necessarily need to be daily, but we listen to something uplifting, inspiring each day. We read for at least 15 minutes from a recommended book in order to inspire and nurture our mind. And of course, we watch a live presentation or perhaps a recorded one where we can maintain engagement with the messaging that's going forward. So these 6 principles are critical. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to take one of these as a subject and drill down a little deeper as to why each of these points are so important, because each of them are essential. I'm going to stop the share and then jump back. So each of these, I think, are really important, but they also tie in very fundamentally to our wellness tour strategy. I'm going to repeat myself a lot. Repetition is the mother of learning. So I'm going to repeat this again. But the world tour strategy is not about hosting a single event or maybe a monthly event for 3 months. What it is about is establishing a schedule, a system, and a rhythm of daily, weekly, monthly activity in order to build our business at a local level. We know with a stair-step breakaway plan like we have, that we move from one pool of the business to the next. People in our personal group should move into our leadership group, but we don't get them transitioning in if people aren't coming in at the front end in the first place. So to get them in, we have the local meetings. We have ABCs, we have one-on-ones, we have in-homes, and that leads to the monthly engagement of a local meeting, which is what we're seeing in this wellness tour. But what do we do in between these monthly meetings? This is where we get the benefit of this core consultant activity, where we are plugging in, working with a mentor, where we are speaking to people every day, where we're showing the plan a couple of times a week, where we're keeping ourselves inspired and motivated by feeding our minds and our hearts with uplifting, edifying material, and staying connected with the webinars and the trainings that are taking place. So you can see how this all feeds together really well. Wouldn't you agree? So I want to talk today on the first point, which is this principle of communication. To me, this is a critical starting point because I've heard it said time and time and time again, and I'm sure many of you have said this time and time and time again as well, that communication is king. You know, if you want to be a great leader, we need to learn how to communicate. It's not just about having a vision, it's about being able to effectively communicate our vision. If you want to help improve people's lives, often that is done with the words that we use, as well as with the actions that we demonstrate. I want to share a couple of funny examples of how communication hasn't always gone the way we would hope. And this is just fun, just to highlight the point. So I'm going to read a couple of points out here. It says, the world is wired for miscommunication. And of course, it's especially problematic when we cross cultures or use shorthand social media or email to communicate. Now, wouldn't you agree, in a business like Nikan, that we have an international business, cross-culture communication, and all of that stuff. And of course, social media can help or not help, depending on how we communicate. So here's some funny examples of how communication has gone wrong. It says here, effective communication and language translation involves far more than converting words and phrases from one language to another. It needs to convey intent. Now, of course, this doesn't just apply in translation. This applies in any interaction. We don't just communicate the words. We need to communicate motive, purpose, intent. And so here's some ones where they've tried to communicate only the words, and as a result, without communicating intent, they got things very, very wrong. In the early 1980s, there was some computer programmers that were developing some innovative translation software, but they came up with some very peculiar results. Here's one. From English to Russian back to English. They wanted to say out of sight, out of mind, but they ended up translating it to invisible idiot. From English to Japanese and back to English. To be or not to be? That is the question. Coming from Hamlet and Shakespeare, ended up being, it is not, what is it? I think that's quite a funny one. A Swedish vacuum cleaner manufacturer, Electrolux, had a good one. Again, using Swedish language translated into English, they had a campaign in American advertising where it said, "Nothing sucks like Electrolux." Of course, the words made sense, but the intent and motive was, nothing is more rubbish than Electrolux. It came across very, very bad. So we've got all these different things. Chinese, in Chinese, this is a good one. The Kentucky Fried Chicken slogan, "Finger licking good," ended up getting promoted in China as "eat your fingers off." So you've got all sorts of scenarios here where it just didn't go according to plan. Now, I had a great call just a moment ago with a wonderful leader, a great leader in our team, a diamond in Mexico, Alejandra Nava. She's fantastic leader, got a great team going on, a lot of good. Now, I want to focus today on that first point of being a core consultant, which is communicating. And like I said before, it's not just that we communicate our words, it's that we need to effectively communicate our intent and our motive, our purpose. And this is the important part of communicating. That's what helps to build relationships, and that's what helps to build understanding and clarity. But I want to share with you some things that she has done to communicate with her team in order to effectively establish local leadership, local groups, and consistent activity. Because we know that we don't succeed as islands in this business. Any success, any rank advancement, any achievement is almost always done as the result of a collective effort, a collaborative effort. But here are some things that she said she does with her team in order to help them stay plugged in order to help her to communicate effectively, and in order for her team to understand what's the most important things to be doing. So this I want to share with you as an example of some good things to do as a team leader, especially if you're working as a launch host in this tour, but also to demonstrate some things that we need to be focusing on in order to see the benefits of plugging in with our upline or our crossline, whichever one is working with us the most. She said she started out in building her team by having a monthly planning meeting. It's interesting that she didn't necessarily jump into an in-home as the first activity or as a monthly meeting. She started out by having a planning meeting first. And it's interesting because anything that we build, if you're going to build a house, if you're going to build a car, if you're going to build anything, it's always planned out first. You don't put together the architect's plans after you've built the house. You sit down with the architect and with the team and you put the plans together first. So interestingly, she applied that principle of identifying her leaders, pulling together, and beginning with a monthly planning meeting. She said there were some benefits about this. She said they got to know each other socially. That was important in solidifying the community of the group. Because we know, of course, what makes our team strong is not necessarily the activity that is happening, but the relationships that exist within the team. That's what keeps things very tight. And of course, the lack of communication can dissemble the team also very quickly. She also said it's not about being the best as the leader. That is not what's important. She said it's about mixing strengths together with each other so that we get the best collectively. I like that. So as you're establishing your own team, your own activity, your own local group, it is not about being the best person in the room, the smartest, the most educated, the most talented. It's about bringing people together so that we can bring out the best in each other and share that. One person might have one strength, another person might have another strength. And when we're working together, we can create some meaningful results. So she said she also established a quarterly planning meeting that helped to drive forward the next 90 days. I think that's really important. And you'll notice, of course, that as Mike and I have worked together very closely on this world tour, that's really what we've done. We've done the first quarter, the first 90 days. Have we stopped there? No. Mike and I were talking earlier on today about the next 90 days and the next big meeting to help kick that off, which of course is the event in Orlando. So then she said every 2 months they do a getting started training. They come together live in person. That'll be a 3-hour training on product, personality training, profiling, the 4 personality types, and business training. And she said the benefit of that is, as a leader, when I pull my team together with all the new people to help them get started, and we do personality training on the 4 personality types, I then know the different personality types in my group so I can know how to communicate with them best. So she's doing that not just for training for a team, but also for self-education to know how best to communicate with her team. I like all of these different examples that she's saying. And she also said that one of the main parts of their meetings was to promote the events that are happening. She said, because we build our business, as we've all heard, from event to event, from meeting to meeting. These are really important. But she doesn't spend the time talking about the date and the venue. She's talking about the benefits of the event. Who are the guest speakers going to be? What are they going to learn from this event? What are the benefits? I've worked with this person before. Let me tell you what you're going to get from this meeting. Let me tell you why this is important for you to be there. And so she will spend a big chunk of her time promoting the upcoming meetings and putting them into the calendar of the team. I really like that. In working together, we are no longer working in isolation. I have had, unfortunately, too many examples where people have come to me and said, what's going on? I don't know how to get started. I don't know how to get plugged in. We've got all of these resources available to us. We have the weekly webinars. We have all of these resources on the Royal Alliance website, on the Magnetic Leaders website and such like, on the Facebook pages, the Facebook channels, all of these different places where people can go to get the resources. They're there, they're available, they're being promoted. But what is missing? It's the personal communication with upline and downline or teams that isn't always happening. Or if it is happening, it's not happening enough. So I want to highlight this, that it is important for us, even though we have the weekly webinars, even though we have the launch meetings that are taking place, even though we have conference calls, even though we have video broadcasts, video recordings, and websites that people can go and plug into, it still requires us as leaders to proactively reach out and to pull people in. It requires us to communicate out as well as waiting. We don't want to just wait for them to communicate to us. We need to do a lot of the reaching out ourselves. This makes a significant difference. So this is kind of my critical point for today as we start out in deciding and in discussing what a core consultant is. It begins with they are a good communicator. They work upline and they work downline, and they communicate what's happening, what's going on. They promote the incentives. They promote the meetings and the events. They plug people into the calendars so that as core consultants, no one feels confused. No one feels lost. no one feels uncertain, no one feels insecure. The key benefit, I think, of all of this communication is it helps people feel plugged in, connected, and confident. And that is so important in building a business. Wouldn't you say that as we look at people that get started, if they don't have that sense of community, if they don't have that sense of confidence of what to do, what will they do? Nothing. They'll stop. They'll pause. They'll hesitate. And if they hesitate too long, then the feeling passes, the mood passes, and then they disappear. So we can put all of this effort into recruiting a new team member, a new business partner, and then through negligence on our part, we could lose them. And wouldn't that be a travesty? Isn't that a shame that so much could be achieved when they're in if we help them get started strong simply by communicating a little better? So in conclusion, we want to make sure that as a core consultant, we are communicating upline to make sure that we're connected and plugged in, but we're also communicating downline to pass on critical information to people within our teams. We pass on the content, the important information, but also we pass on the intent, the content and the intent. And the intent is equally as important, because otherwise we can lose people in a sea of confusion or uncertainty or mixed messages. We don't want that to be the case. So that, I hope, is something that we can all work hard on this week as we're building our businesses, that we make sure that we strive a little better to be clearer and more consistent in our communication. Again, I want to reiterate the importance of the Active Wellness Tour. This is creating some incredible results. And again, whether the meetings are big or small, the critical thing is that we are doing them and doing them consistently, and that we're promoting them and letting people know that this is what we're a part of. Because repetition of the right activity will always bring over time the right results. And whether it's one person or 100 people in the room, if that one person does the right thing, we all know in network marketing what that can lead to, don't we? It can be something very significant. So let's recognize the value of the individual, reach out, make a difference, support them, communicate with them, share with them, love them, nurture, look after, and make a difference. This is one way that when we talk about humans being more, we can really help that come to fruition through effective, meaningful, heartfelt, consistent communication. So there is step number one in being a core consultant. Communicate, because that is king. So thank you all very much, and I look forward to speaking to you all again very soon. Take care, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.